We're in a place called Love Park in my hometown here in Toronto. And this is the harborfront area. We're actually heading to the airport and we are going to be in New York this weekend. I'm meeting up with some members from Flow-Based Prosperity, as well as with some of my clients. Clients are friends, friends are clients. So today I would like to talk about spontaneity and how one of the things that I do often is these kinds of things, spontaneous travels. I go away for the weekend or the week, and I find that I receive a lot of inspiration. So we're going to walk over to Billy Bishop Airport, which is the airport that I will be flying out of. Sometimes I take the other airport, which is Pearson Airport, which is about a 25-minute train ride away. This one is a 30-minute walk away. So spontaneity, there's a wonderful book, I recommend reading it. There's actually two of them that are very similar, written by the same author, Price Pritchett. One is called U Squared, and the other is called The Quantum Leap Strategy. Both of them speak about making bold, spontaneous moves, what someone can consider as unconventional moves, moves they wouldn't normally make. Now, there are many benefits to doing this. One of them that I have found is that it stimulates creativity. Because let's say if a person is in a particular environment for an extended period of time, they may get really stuck, we could say, or appear to be stuck in a routine, or they can get really stuck in their head. And this is something that I've noticed about myself over the years. And so as a result of making flow a priority in 2017, this is one of the things that I inventoried, that I found that ended up contributing to my flow, spontaneous travel. Now, in 2013, all the way up until the start of 2019, I was traveling all over the place. I lived in Austria, Mexico, California. I was in different parts of Europe. Every now and then, I would come back to Toronto and book Airbnbs, and I would run my business remotely. And it was a lot of fun. So what I found was a wonderful combination for me that works ideally, where maybe a handful of times within the scope of, let's say, 5 or 6 months, I do travels. And they could be for the weekends, or it could be 1 week. So this is one of the key insights when it comes to making flow a priority, is what are those flow-based things that you could do that are flow enhancers? For me, it's spontaneous travel. Now, in relation to this particular book, The Quantum Leap Strategy and Price Pritchett's other book, U Squared, the individual may find that they're stuck and they don't know what to do next. Creativity is not flowing. Insights are not flowing. Now, they're always there. They're just maybe identified with the mental chatter. No shame in condemnation. That can be released. It can be released by a meditation. And sometimes we may find it's easy to release that by just booking a flight. That's what I found. I found that if I just book a flight, just literally book the flight, right away I start getting insights. And what I also found is that on the day of travel, I get insights, and then during the travel, I get a lot of insights. One of the reasons why I believe is because by switching up the environment, it appears like a blank canvas, going into a new blank canvas. And all these different concepts and ideas that you are looking to integrate into your way of being or into your business, for example, I find that they start to get integrated. I even found that there were times where when I traveled, what happened was things in my business started to move. things that appeared to be stuck, all of a sudden projects started to move. People started contacting me and saying, that thing that we were waiting on, it's now here, and now we can move forward with it. Or if I didn't know how to optimize a particular area, I speak a lot about optimization, automation, delegation, or elimination in part or in whole or in combination. If I didn't know what that optimization was, or if I didn't know what that delegation, elimination, or automation was, by doing something like this, all of a sudden the idea shows up. It could be for me, it could be for someone that I'm working with, it could be someone that, let's say, I'm consulting for. It's interesting how it all works, because everyone is interconnected. As I say, all subconscious minds are interconnected. So by me releasing identification to being stuck in my head, everything flows. Everything flows around me. My relationships flow. My life flows. Everything flows. So what I find, though, is not so much now, not since I made flow a priority, but prior to that, it was really challenging for me to just make a spontaneous move. Now, there were times where I made a spontaneous move, such as in 2009, when I put in my resignation in my corporate career, which I was there for 10 years. I made that bold move and I never looked back. Everything worked out. I built 3 successful businesses since. Everything worked out. At that time, I made that bold move. I was excited about it. But there were other times from 2009 to 13, leading up to 2017, since I made flow a priority, where those ideas would show up in my mind and those insights, I wouldn't act on them right away. I would hesitate. I was identified with doubt. You could say that insight from intuition appeared within, yet I was also doubting at the same time. So then I found an insight. I said, what if I can practice this ability where if I receive an intuitive insight within, like, for example, book the flight, do an unconventional move, whatever it may be, radically change something in my business model, radically change something in my life, if the intuition was sharing an insight, what if I made a habit? So I want to talk about habits in upcoming videos. What if I made the habit of taking that step right away? Right away taking that step. Maybe I might count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then take that step. Or I would just take that step. The habit was essentially releasing identification to whatever kind of beliefs that were generating this experience of procrastination. Or we could say, not being how I truly desire to be. Or we could say, not living authentically. So, by taking this kind of step, this bold step, again and again and again, or if intuition provides an insight, I take this step and I do this again, and again, something interesting ends up happening. What ends up happening is, let's go for a little spin around here, you can see. What ends up happening is the habit forms. The habit of listening to yourself and trusting yourself. Then what happens is you automatically do things. Maybe in the earlier stages, you could say there's a gap between where the intuition arises and then a step taken. We can call it procrastination if you'd like. Now, for whatever the reason may be, if that belief is there, that's generating that resistance, it can be released by taking the step. Because I know that these steps are received within. They're received within from the source. They're received within from God. And if I take these steps, and I've seen connecting the dots looking backwards in my life, having taken many of these steps, they always produce results. They always result in wonderful life experiences, meeting wonderful people, such as some of the experiences that I'll be sharing with you in some clips that I record over the weekend in the upcoming videos. And as mentioned earlier, things change. Things change beyond what I could logically think about. In other words, I don't know the reasons why they change. All I know is that I take the intuitive step and things change. So what I found is that I always have these intuitive steps. They show up. And as mentioned, a lot of times, the hesitation that was once there, being completely gone, I take the step automatically. So you could say, I didn't realize I took the step. I ended up taking this step, and then I get to this particular point. I'll give a perfect example. So prior, as mentioned, at times, I would get an intuition to book a trip or take a bold step. Let's use trip as an example. I would get the intuition to take the step, and then I would hesitate for maybe like 2 or 3 days. But that intuition just kept showing up. The still small voice kept saying to me, take that step. And then I took the step and things worked out. And then, through forming this habit, really a harmonious relationship with intuition, which I like how Florence Scovel Shinn said it. She said, prayer is you telephoning to God, and intuition is God telephoning to you. So by taking this step again and again and again, what happened was there were times where automatically I felt compelled to book a trip, and I would automatically book the trip. And maybe like 10 or 15 minutes later, I would look at that and say, wait, I have all these commitments and all these things that, let's say, need to be done, but I just booked the trip. And I realized that I had formed that habit. And I knew, upon connecting the dots many times, that it always worked out. So I took the trip, and sure enough, you would meet someone that was providing some insight or business deal or a new friend, or some things would change in your business or in your life, as I had mentioned, spontaneously, I don't know how. By taking that spontaneous step, what happened was all these things change. So there's something to be said about developing this habit to listen to your intuition. There are those that listen to their intuition unconditionally, unhesitating obedience, you could say, to intuition. They take the step. To them, what I'm talking about in this video, which wasn't my experience in the earlier stages, might not make any sense. They may say, why is there a gap between getting an intuitive idea and doing it? Or I just automatically do things. As a matter of fact, we actually already automatically do intuitive things. What I found is that there are particular areas in our life, it could be in our business, could be with relationships, for example, starting conversations with people. There are particular areas in our life where there may be hesitation, and that's okay. This is part of building the relationship or growing the relationship with God. It's a practical way of growing your relationship with God, is to listen to intuition and live by intuition. I mentioned in a whole bunch of videos over the last few years that I listen exclusively to intuition. unhesitating obedience to intuition. I restructured my entire life so that people, information, environments, everything and everyone, for example, perfect example would be flow-based prosperity, is supportive of me listening to my intuition. That's one of the things that I encourage the highest in flow-based prosperity is listening to yourself and trusting yourself. Because let's say you're part of a mastermind or a group coaching. It could be flow-based prosperity, it could be any group, or you have a group of friends. Intuition may provide an insight that may be different than what is being discussed in the group. We can say that the group helped stimulate that insight, provided clarity through conversation, the mastermind. Yet that insight that arose may be different than what people in the group are doing. Now, in a supportive environment, let's say you share what that insight is with the group understands that that insight came from intuition. They know if it came from, let's say, identification to illusory, untrue beliefs, not from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Or they know if it came from intuition, from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And that could be a way of doing things, could be a marketing technique, could be move to a particular country, it could be go to a particular event. For example, we had a number of conversations in flow-based prosperity of individuals who went camping. Camping trips may not on the surface seem related to business, yet it was. Because when they went on that camping trip, they met some individuals that turned into partnerships. So when that insight arose, and when we had the conversation about it, it made sense. I've had that experience as well. I remember in 2009, I had a spontaneous insight while I was starting my IT business, in that earlier stages of my IT business, to go camping. And I remember calling up my cousin, and she said, yeah, go camping. One might think, well, it is better for me to dedicate time to do sales, do marketing, work on my operations, innovation, which is also what I teach in my subconscious mind program, for example, focusing on key initiatives, as well as my entrepreneurial program, the key initiatives. Although intuition may provide unconventional moves. So I knew, and she knew, that this was one of them. So I went on the trip. And on the trip, I made friends with a woman. Her and I became really good friends. She actually lives in Toronto, and at that time was living in Toronto. And the other woman that was hosting the trip, she also was living in Toronto. And what happened is by going on that trip with one of my friends from high school, them and a whole bunch of other friends, their friends, is we formed relationships. We hung out, we did a lot of things. And what happened was she invited me to cat sit because her and her husband were going to Portugal. And she said, would you be interested, since you like hanging around with one of my other friends who I also met over there, stay in Toronto, you guys can hang out. And at that time, I didn't have that insight to move to Toronto to build my IT business. Even though you could say logically, it makes sense because there's so much opportunity here to acquire IT clients. There are many thousands of businesses that are looking for IT service providers, that are looking for teams that they can bring in to support their IT needs, we can say. But then from that trip, we met, we hung out. I ended up staying there for, I think, like a few weeks, something like that. I would hang out more in Toronto. The woman that was also friends with the other woman who owned the place. And we would hang out. And then one day we were walking on Queen Street. If you're from Toronto, you'll know Queen Street. And we went to this restaurant/bar, lunchtime, to get some food, which some of you might know, it's not around anymore. At least I don't think, unless they moved it. It's called Cadillac Lounge. So I went there, and we hung out, we had some lunch, and I ran into another friend from high school. And then he says to me, my friend and I are opening up a bar, lounge, restaurant down the street. I was mentioning to him that I was starting this business, or I was in the earlier stages of this business. And he said, maybe you could help us out with stuff. So a thought arose in my mind. What could I help him out with? I'm focusing on IT solutions for offices. That's what I did in corporate. Enterprise servers. And internetworking. So I'm thinking I'm going to support offices in Toronto, which is fine. What happened was I ended up going there, meeting him, and they said that they were interested in a point of sale system. Now, a thought that arose in my mind is, again, why would I get involved with point of sale systems? What does this got to do with offering IT solutions to offices in Toronto? But intuition, I was listening to the intuitive leads that were appearing. We're pulling into Billy Bishop now. I was listening to the intuitive leads that were appearing within, and I was following them, following my intuition. And what happened was I connected with one of my mentors. He mentioned Open Bravo, a software. I ended up building a point of sale system, customized it. What I did with him is I offered it for free in exchange for staying in a place in Toronto. So he gave me a really discounted place to stay in Toronto. That ended up working out. So I ended up moving to Toronto thanks to him, thanks to everyone that contributed, thanks to intuition. And then what happened was he referred me to all these businesses that wanted point of sale systems. So that actually became one of my offerings. And the back end, as in from those relationships with those businesses that I offered point of sale systems to, they referred me to businesses that resulted in me getting IT clients. So we can see now, as we approach the airport, spin around, let's take a little look here. That's one of the reasons why I chose to live in this area here, is because the easy access to the airport. I like doing this walk. This is actually where that particular area right there is where I do my run. It goes up to that area where the other day I did a video, Lakeshore. So, listening to intuition, at times it may provide an unconventional move. The habit of listening to your intuition again and again and again. The insight arises, I take the step. No hesitation. Maybe in the earlier stages, a lot of hesitation. It goes away. It goes from a lot of hesitation, this has been my experience, to less and less hesitation, to instantaneously, to the point where I don't even know I made the intuitive move, you can say, yet it worked out. So, wonderful book, The Quantum Leap Strategy, talks about this. If a person's stuck in their head, or they feel stuck in their environment, which is illusory, they're just identified to subconscious beliefs that appears in a way that they appear stuck. They're actually free. I am. Unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. They can read that book, just maybe like, I don't know, it's 7 or 10 or 15 or 20 pages or something like that. It's a very short read. And I think it's the way that he wrote it or something like that. What happens is right away you get an insight, and the way he wrote it, the way he communicated it, or for whatever the reason, you take the step, or there may be hesitation, you talk yourself through it, you take the step, and things work out in your favor. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Here at the airport, let's create an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I listen exclusively to the still small voice. I follow my heart and intuition as God reveals within the direct path to living on purpose and manifesting my desires of the heart. Only God gives and fulfills desires from the heart. As a result, I receive within ideas, plans, hunches, inspirations, which I act upon unhesitatingly, more so each moment, with increasing frequency on a continuous basis, as far as the senses perceive, to manifest my heaven on earth.